Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our service, we ask that you please turn off all cell phones or electronic devices or place them in silent. Thank you.
Kirachem av al banim, richam Adonai al yireyav. As a parent has compassion for their children, God has compassion for those who show reverence. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are dust. The days of mortals are like grass. We flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over us and we are no more. But Adonai's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children endures age after age, unchanging. Friends, we're gathered this morning to honor the memory of Elliot Levine, who has gone to his eternal home, and to bring comfort to his beloved family. We'll begin that process through the recitation of Psalms, as our people have done from generation upon generation, as we search out those words of support, of love, and of comfort. Shir lamalot esainai eleharim meyain yavo ezri esainai eleharim meyain yavo ezri Ezri me'im Adonai Ose shamayim v'aretz Ezri me'im Adonai Ose shamayim v'aretz Al yitein lamot raglecha, al yanum shomerecha, hine lo yanum v'lo yishan, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha, al yad yeminecha, yomam hashemesh lo yakecha, v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha bo'echa, me'ata ve'ad olam. A song for ascents, Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm, and will guard your soul. Adonai guards your going and coming, now and forever. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binodeshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai, dishanta v'Hashem en roshi kosi rabaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim. Those were the Hebrew words of Psalm 23, also known as the Shepherd's Psalm, a psalm that we turn to in difficult moments such as this one. I'll invite everyone to join with me in the English of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Friends, we are currently reading in our annual Torah reading cycle from the first book of the Torah, which is the book of Genesis, the book of Breshit. And already in the book of Genesis, we see that in our tradition, when we lose a loved one, it's family members and friends that step forward to offer words of eulogy and words of memory. And that's exactly what we will do now, as we're first going to hear from Elliot's children, from Bruce and Eric and Carrie, then his grandchildren, Jessica and Jonathan, and then from friend and mentee and student and colleague, Judy Grinspan. So first, his children, Bruce, Carolyn, and Eric.
Rabbi Wexler, in a recent sermon, you said it's okay to cry, so we're going to be okay. Quote my father, I want to keep that. Famous words, often spoken by a father. If you needed every National Geographic extension cord, light fixture, screw nut, or bolt, or anything else that entered a house on Squire Lane, between 1972 and 2020, it was still there. Our father loved to keep things. He kept in his heart the spirit of his mother, we knew as Nana Celia, and his father we knew as Papa Ruby, Robert. He kept the tallis bag embroidered I.L. of his grandfather, Elliot Levine. He was born in 1937 to a modest family in Brooklyn, a family of garment workers and tailors. Besides inheriting from his father a talent for tinkering and jury rigging, he also inherited an older brother he called Artie and who called him Ellie. Artie was 8 years older, and in my father's childhood, he was his role model and often a father figure. They shared the same bedroom until Artie graduated college. Our father recalled, can you imagine a bratty 9-year-old listening to the Brooklyn Dodger night game while Artie was trying to finish difficult homework? He never complained or harassed me. What lessons of love and tolerance did he keep from that house on Bradford Street? Another lesson was a love of learning and science. He attended Brooklyn Tech High School in the 1950s, which was all boys, many from immigrant and working class backgrounds. He then earned a BS in chemistry from Queens College, followed by a PhD in biochemistry from Yale. He served in the U.S. Public Health Service at the National Institutes of Health, then a position at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx. In 1972, he joined the Wistar Institute in Philadelphia with a faculty appointment at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, positions he kept until retirement. Over his scientific career, he published prolifically in the scientific literature, was granted patents, mentored many graduate students and junior faculty. We're grateful to Judy Grinspan, who will speak later on her time as a PhD student in his lab at Wistar. One story from those days at Wistar I'd like to share. Our father had been working on culturing cells in a bioreactor, simulating microgravity, and won an application to send an experiment on the space shuttle, STS-89, which launched in January 1998. Rosalie and I had bought a camcorder prior to our son Jonathan's birth in 1995. My father asked to borrow it so he could record the launch from the VIP area at Cape Kennedy, which was closer than the public got to watch a launch. He had the camera on, the shuttle launched successfully, but he was so excited that the camcorder was pointed at the ground the whole time. Back to family and the friends our father kept. One summer, 70 years ago, as a camp counselor, he spied a certain Marion Levy, he pursued and won her heart forever. Our father loved to keep things. He kept close to our mother for all of those 70 years. They kept a growing family, me, my brother, sister, comfortable in suburbia in Paramus, then Cherry Hill. Grade schools during the day with Hebrew school at Temple Beth Shalom in the evenings and Sundays. Family time was at dinner and watching 60s and 70s sci-fi movies on rainy weekends. On sunny days when we were playing in the street with friends, we always listened for our father's whistle. Then it was time to come home. Our father kept in that home many, many books. Current affairs, history, Judaica, travel, humor, books, books, books. With a scientist father and a nurse mother, the home was modest, comfortable, and organized. Thanks to our mother, it was decorated impeccably. With prudent financial management, our parents began to take us on trips, first by car, then a couple by plane. In 1979, they began to talk of a special trip, the trip of a lifetime. We went on a group trip with Temple Beth Shalom, led by founding Rabbi Albert Lewis, the subject of the Mitch Albom book, Have a Little Faith. Google it later. The trip started in Egypt. We were in Cairo, visited the pyramids, the Sphinx, Luxor, then to Jordan, Amman and Petra, and then all over Israel. We could spend 18 days talking about that 18-day trip. For my parents, it was a catalytic event at the time and the start of the group, lifelong friendships with the Rollins, Shapiros, and Solomons, who joined together on many subsequent trips and cruises around the world.
Through all of their travels, our parents developed an appreciation for for fine dining, including French and Italian food, to name just a few. Later in life, his taste in food became even more sophisticated. Most recently, his favorite delicacy was frosted flakes. When we were growing up, my father also played a superhero role, not Spider-Man, but my sister's spider killer.
One by one, we each left for college. Eric and I continued to grad school, but still kept grounded by our father's wise counsel. One day, I brought a guest home to Cherry Hill. Rosalie was an instant hit, more than a hit, a chart topper. My father treated her as if she were his own daughter. He was always a great judge of character. Many things brought our father joy: puppies, kittens, especially babies, even if they weren't his. He took great delight in making faces at anybody's babies and teaching them to raspberry or Bronx cheer. That joy went to a whole other level when he welcomed his first grandchild and then his second. It is impossible to overstate how much they meant to him and the connection they each had with him.
Our parents moved to the Lionsgate CCRC in June 2020, in the middle of COVID, which was not an ideal time to meet people. Somehow they did, and some of their friends are here today. Lionsgate has been a wonderful community of support for our parents, and we thank you. Our father was everybody's friend. It used to be my mother who was the social butterfly, but in recent years, he could talk anyone's ear off. He had an amazing memory for detail and would tell stories or recount history to his audience, sometimes only until his children gently brought him back on track. Just a few days ago, I ran into Ed, one of Lionsgate's handymen, in the hallway. He recognized me and mentioned how sad he was to learn of my father's passing. Ed said, "He was my buddy. I really enjoyed talking to Elliot. I will miss him." And then when I called the home health aid company to let them know of my father's passing, the coordinator who answered was saddened and told me that my father was one of the sweetest people she's ever worked with.
Our father's love for and devotion to our mother has endured for 70 years.
His devotion to us was constant and will be everlasting.
We will keep his kindness, his sense of humor, and sweet soul with us always.
We want to keep that.
We want to keep that.
We want to keep that.
Thank you to Elliot's children for those eloquent words of memory, and thank you, Bruce, for listening to my high holiday sermon. I appreciate that. Now we're going to call on Elliot's grandchildren, Jonathan and Jessica.
I never thought that I had an accent until I began teaching in DC, and all my students would boldly go, "I'm walking here." Until my coworkers can't take me seriously when I say water bottle. And as I was reflecting on my grandpa, I realized I don't just have an accent, I have the accent of a late 80s Jewish man. A mix of New York, though I never grew up there, and South Jersey that feels like it shouldn't exist in the body of a 26-year-old, but it still does. But the way I talk isn't the only thing he gave me. I got my bad jokes, my wavy eyebrows, my interest in history from him. I got my napping on the sofa, always having room for dessert, probably needing to wear a bib into adulthood from him. I got my Dr. Brown's soda affinity, my way with cats, my dry sense of humor from him. From watching the same 6 episodes of Mr. Bean to giving updates on the latest in tomfoolery at the museum, my time with my grandpa was always valuable and filled with laughter. Even in the past few months, when things began getting difficult for him and Mimi, he would always make me chuckle in between dropping a nugget of wisdom. I hope that one day I'll be able to have an impact on others like Grandpa, to share my heart and humor so openly, and to rock some glasses on a chain around my neck.
We're going to do this thing where Jess is the funny one, and I'm not funny. Sorry. It's difficult to remember someone. It's difficult when so much of your life is owed to that one person. So much so that the closeness between you and them makes everything simultaneously crystal clear and infinitely foggy. Everything is always kept at arm's length. Memories are often kept at arm's length. Grandpa Elliot refused to keep anything that far away. He pinched ears and cheeks. He lobbed dry remarks and pointed jokes. He became as much a part of me, of us, as we are of ourselves. This distance between people and memories is measured in miles, hours, days, and weeks. It has a tendency to remain as such. Grandpa Elliot was uniquely adept at closing that distance. The second we were in the room together, his cheeky smile, his warmth, his humor, his unwavering intelligence, an intelligence he cherished and nourished for his entire life, an intelligence that made me feel dumb, which is fine, brought us swiftly back together, as close and as warm as we ever were. Grandpa Elliot surpassed distance. In the last few days, that distance has felt a bit longer and a bit more daunting. There are many things we wish we could have said to him. Indeed, for each second we have spent alive, we could have spent another second sitting by his side, talking about geopolitics or topology of muffins or nothing at all. To hear him recount his travel drama with food, as was previously discussed, his enemies and companions on cruises, his awkward living situations in New Haven, or repeating several hundred times per day how much he loves his Mickey, our Mimi. We get it, guys. You're married.
It is hard to not let the distance overwhelm us all, but Grandpa Elliot doesn't mind. Miles, kilometers, hours, whatever the metric version of hours is beats him. He would want us to laugh. He would want us to love. He would want us to be together, however much that we can.
Grandpa Elliot would always say how proud he was of us. He would say it directly to us, to our family, to people at Lionsgate, to strangers who didn't ask or didn't care. He was always very proud. That certainly may be true, but what he didn't say, or perhaps what he didn't even know or realize, is that we are only a reflection of who he is and who he was. We love you, Grandpa. We're proud of you, and thank you.
Thank you, Jessica and Jonathan. And now we're going to invite up Judy.
To Bruce, Eric, Carrie, grandchildren, and of course Marion, I'd like to tell you how much Elliot meant to me for a number of reasons. As you all know, I got my PhD in his lab, working there from October of 1977 to March of 1984. I'm not sure I could have gotten my degree without his mentorship. A number of things stick out in my memory. At the Wistar Institute, in those days, a graduate student did not apply to work in a specific lab. One submitted a general application with one's CV or resume, and if a professor wanted a student, they called you. I did that and was surprised to quickly get a call from Elliot. I interviewed and started doing a rotation with him. A few days into it, he came out from his office into the lab and said something like, "I see you spent 2 summers working in labs at Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. How did you like that?" Aha, I thought, the Jewish hook. I suppose it didn't hurt. In retrospect, it was very important for me to have a Jewish mentor at that time in my life. Maybe he knew that. The most important story of my time there happened about 2.5 years ago, 2.5 years after I started. I had been married to my husband, Ed, for about 3.5 years, and we were considering starting a family, but I never, ever talked about that with Elliot or the lab. I had already passed my preliminary exam for my PhD, and had what I thought was a solid enough body of work for my thesis to know where I was going. But one day, the lab found out that the bovine aortic endothelial cells I was mostly using for my thesis were contaminated with something very inelegantly called bovine viral diarrhea. Steve Mueller, the postdoc, cavalierly said to me, "Looks like you're going to have to throw all your data in the trash and start over from the beginning." I got very upset. Elliot hauled me into his office and said, without skipping a beat or without an introduction, "If you and Ed want to have a baby while you get your PhD, go right ahead, we'll work it out." How did he know what I was thinking? How did he know why I got so upset at what Steve said? About 15 months later, Elizabeth Grinspan was born. So this is where Elliot's other mentoring skills came into play. We spent so much time talking about childbirth and child raising, and basically everything he ever told me turned out to be true. He was my most trusted advisor. He kept his promise. We figured out how I could manage to be both a mom and get my PhD. I defended my thesis 8 months pregnant with my second child. The lab was a fun place. We teased Elliot about his then love of processed food and junk foods. Maybe this has changed based on what I hear. One year on Elliot's birthday, which I believe is June 16th, we made him a cake consisting of Hershey's chocolate bars, milk chocolate, of course, Velveeta cheese, Wonder Bread, maraschino cherries, and Cool Whip. We held it together with toothpicks. He took it apart and ate out the chocolate. Elliot considered the loud part of his family. I distinctly remember Carrie's bat mitzvah at Temple Beth Shalom. I think it was December of 1982. Elliot decided that in addition to saying the blessings during his aliyah, he would actually chant the Torah portion. He did it well, and we were very proud of him. When I was finishing my thesis, I started to look for postdoctoral positions. Elliot was very protective of me and wanted to make sure I was well placed. I wanted to stay in the Penn environment. I had a few interviews, and then Elliot suggested sending my resume to Don Silberberg, a neurologist who also did tissue culture work, which was my expertise. I did. Don didn't have an open position, but his friend Dave Pleasure at CHOP did. Dave met me and offered me the job. Elliot didn't know Dave, but made sure he checked him out through the Penn scientific grapevine. Dave more than checked out. Elliot gave me his blessing. About a week after I started in Dave's lab at Children's Hospital, Dave came out of his office and said, "So I see you spent 2 summers working in labs at Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. How did you like that?" He said, "I did a short sabbatical there a few years ago." History repeated itself. I'm now a full professor. I have 4 kids. I had twins during my postdoc and 3 grandkids. I owe so much to Elliot. I was very lucky he chose me. I'm sorry he's gone. May his memory be for a blessing.
Thank you to Judy and to Jonathan and Jessica and Bruce and Eric and Carrie for sharing those stories and those memories. Friends, we're quickly approaching the holiday of Hanukkah, which begins this Wednesday evening. At the darkest time of the year, we mark Chag Urim, the Festival of Lights, as we seek to dispel darkness not only with the lamps that we light, but also with joyous celebration. Perhaps there is in this practice a lesson for our gathering here today. This is a dark moment. We are saddened by the loss of Elliot Levine, and yet we gather today to share memories and illuminate his life, and in turn, illuminate our lives as well. Elliot brought a lot of light to our all too dark world, but most of all, he brought light to his beloved family. He was a dedicated husband to his beloved wife, Marion, a proud and supportive father to his children, Bruce, Eric, and Carrie, and to his daughter-in-law, Rosalie. And he was a doting grandfather to his grandchildren, Jonathan and Jessica. To all of you, I offer my deepest condolence and sympathy during this difficult time. We gather today to honor Elliot's life, to hold tight to the beautiful memories of time shared and blessings bestowed, and to reflect on all the light that he brought to the world. Bruce and Eric and Carrie shared much of Elliot's biography. I want to again highlight how simply brilliant and an illustrious scientific career that he had, a career in which he mentored many students, was prolific in his research, and made a lasting impact in the field of biochemistry. He certainly loved his work, but he loved his family and friends more. And that love began first and foremost with his wife, Marion. Elliot and Marion met as teenagers at a New York summer camp. Elliot won Marion over, and as they say, the rest is history. They dated for 5 years and were married on August 29th, 1959. You know, when a couple stands together under the chuppah to get married, we recite Sheva Brachot, 7 blessings of joy. In 2 of these blessings, we pray that the couple become Re'im Ahuvim, beloved companions. Marion, you and Elliot were certainly beloved companions. True soulmates, you were blessed with 65 years of marriage, together for a total of 70 years. You were each other's first and only loves. A true romantic love it was, enduring, supportive, and always caring. They complemented each other and they supported one another through and through, both having successful careers while adeptly raising 3 children together. As we heard, they appreciated fine dining and they loved to travel together, traveling all over Europe and on a total of 19 oceanic cruises. Marion, I know this is an incredibly difficult day, but please know just how much Elliot adored you and that together you brought so much light to everyone. Light that sparked a wonderful life together, a partnership built on shared values, common loves, and simply a joy for being together. A life dedicated to one another and the family that you built. That family began when Bruce was born and grew when Eric and Carrie joined the ranks. When I sat with the 3 of them the other day, they recalled their childhood years and said that their father was loving but strict, yet always caring and supportive. He worked hard but always made time for them. He would wake up at 4:45 a.m. every day, go into the lab to work early, and would leave to come home around 4 p.m. every afternoon so that he could be home, enjoy time with family, and that they could all have dinner together. Family was always the first priority, always at the center, and this certainly applied to his grandchildren as well. He was overjoyed when Jonathan and Jessica came into the world and grew to be so incredibly proud of both of you. Elliot worked tirelessly and devoted all of the time and energy that he could to his family, but he also found time for hobbies and interests and other interests. He was handy, a voracious reader of history with bookshelves upon bookshelves of history books, and he loved gardening, especially flowers. He was particularly proud of the rose garden he planted and tended outside of the kitchen window. Friends, colleagues, and students were also important to Elliot. The family shared with me some condolence messages that they received from other family members and Elliot's friends and colleagues. Each speaks to the light that he personally brought to their lives. Judy wrote, "I loved your father. He gave me an education, a career, and taught me how to parent. I never would have made it to my PhD without his guidance." Steve wrote, "He was a wonderful person and a great mentor to me. I have very fond memories of working with your father in the lab and then for many years afterwards in his administrative roles." Ellen wrote, "I will never forget how welcoming Elliot was when I arrived at Worcester back in 1992. His grasp of cell biology was unparalleled, and I often sought his wise counsel when designing experiments, but also on other important matters less scientific in nature. His scientific insights, life experiences, and kindness have long been an inspiration to me." Niece Debbie wrote about Elliot, "I loved him, and I feel so sad. He was such a sweet soul, and I loved talking to him." And niece Sherry wrote, "I always felt such a warmth of love and acceptance around him, and a feeling that my dad was inside him. Such a beautiful neshama, and great loss to this world." A beautiful neshama indeed. And it was his soul that led Elliot to Temple Beth Shalom in 1972. As the family shared with me, when the family moved to South Jersey in 1972, Marion and Elliot looked at various synagogues, but there was no doubt in their mind where they would join after they met Rabbi Lewis. TBS became home, and the family remained members for the past 52 years. Now at TBS, we, like Elliot, like to keep things. And we happen to keep a file for each family. And you can see the Levine family file is quite large. Letters recognizing lifestyle moments, letters in gratitude for donations and acts of kindness. And yes, Bruce, Eric, and Carrie, this file even contains some of your Hebrew school report cards. Having looked through them, I must say there's no good material to embarrass you with. It also contained in this file is this paper, which is Marion and Elliot's original membership application, and this carbon copy paper, which is a welcome to the congregation letter from Rabbi Lewis. It reads in part, Dear Dr. and Mrs. Levine, we are pleased to have this opportunity of welcoming you into the ranks of the membership of Temple Beth Shalom. Please feel free to call upon me if in any way I can be of help. This was the beginning of a very special relationship which took flight in 1979 when the family traveled on a TBS trip to Israel with Rabbi Lewis, to Israel, Egypt, and Jordan. It was on this trip, which Bruce spoke about, that Elliot and Marion made lifelong friends with the Shapiros, the Rollins, and the Solomons, and became close to Rabbi Lewis. The Levine light was added to our Temple Beth Shalom light, indeed. The last few years of Elliot's life were not easy, and yet he made the best of them through time with family, new friends at Lionsgate, and having Marion at his side. And yet, as the health issues mounted, things became more difficult. Elliot was diagnosed with a neuromuscular disorder and started having balance issues and falls about 2 years ago. More recently, he started having panic attacks. Then he passed away suddenly a few days ago, going into cardiac arrest. His heart, which was so full of love and kindness, simply gave way. When I met with Bruce, Eric, and Carrie on Friday, I asked them what they would want to say to their father today. Bruce said that he would say, quote, I'm sorry we did not get a chance to say goodbye, but thank you, and I love you. Eric said he would want to thank his father for their time together, time which he truly enjoyed and cherished. And Carrie said that she would thank her dad for always being so present in their lives. And finally, Rosalie said that she would want to tell Elliot, you don't need to worry about Mimi or any of us. We will take care of each other, and you can rest peacefully. To Elliot's family, while I know that this is an incredibly difficult time and Elliot's loss leaves an eternal hole in your heart, I hope you can find some sense of peace today, knowing that you did right by him every step of the way. The care and love that you showered on him throughout his life, and especially in recent years, was a true gift that you gave him, a gift that I'm sure he cherished. Speaking of gifts, this brings us back full circle to our theme of Hanukkah. So allow me to conclude with a poem originally written about the Hanukkah candles, but I hope today also serves as a tribute to Elliot and the light that he brought to all of us. Listen to the poem. A candle is a small thing, but one candle can light another, and see how its own light increases as a candle gives its flame to the other. Light is the power to dispel darkness. You have this power to move back the darkness in yourself and in others, to do so with the birth of light, created when one mind illuminates another, when one heart kindles another, when one person strengthens another, and its flame enlarges within you as you pass it on. Today, in Elliot's memory, the family will kindle a memorial candle. Like the Hanukkah candles that we will begin lighting in a few days, it will eventually go out. All candles do. But the light of memory remains, bringing warmth and blessing and illuminating our lives. So may it be with the memory of Elliot Levine, who we honor today. Please rise for a memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein B'Medromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'Malot Kiddushim Otorim, Kezohar Haraki HaMazhirim, Et Nishmat Eliyahu Meir Ben Ruvain Alevi Shalach Liolamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchato Ahana Balarachamim Hastireo Beseter Kenafecha Liolamim Utzrur Mitzrach Hayim Enishmahato Adonai Hunachalato V'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Elliot Levine who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. You may be seated. Friends, immediately following our service here in the chapel, we will be making our way to Locust Wood Memorial Park, where our interment will take place. And then this afternoon, the family will be sitting Shiva at Lionsgate in Voorhees. Comforters are welcome to join the family in the media room beginning at 2:30 p.m., and there will be a minyan with Kaddish and story sharing at 3:30. Set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time for planting and a time for uprooting, a time for hurting and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up. A time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for crying and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering, a time for embracing